Good evening and welcome to the RFCWSG podcast. As always, I'm joined by Alan and Kat. How are you both doing?
Good.
Yeah,
Feels like
happy enough.
forever since we've seen each other.
A couple hours.
Just a couple of hours, eh? So, a few things to discuss tonight. Firstly, we'll kick off with the news that Nick Dock was officially named captain during the week. What did we think of that news? We kind of predicted it a wee bit, so were we overly surprised, Alan?
No, I don't think we were overly surprised. We obviously spoke about it in the last couple of weeks and thought we needed a wee bit of clarity, so the club have done that. Pretty similar to the announcement he made last summer when Cathy was announced. So I think that stops any questions and just sets everybody up as that's what's happening and let's go on with it.
Definitely. Do you think it's a bit harsh on Cathy, though, Kat?
I think it is in the sense that, she came in last season and was announced as captain and it's kind of been taken away from her. But I think from the wording of the announcement, Joe's come in and seen the way that Nick is with the group and how she kind of handles herself on the pitch and in the dressing room and has decided that's who she wants as her captain. So you can't really argue with that she's come in completely fresh and seen what Nick offers and thought that's who I want. But Nick has said herself that, being the captain, it's a lot of responsibility, but she's not the only one that's then going to lead, on the pitch. So I think it's good for her. I think it's good for the club, and it's harsh on Cathy, but I think that takes a bit of pressure off of her now to just go and play football and focus on that rather than all the pressure that comes with being a captain.
Yep, Alan, do you think the injuries to Cathy, because she's had a knock last year with her knee, now she's had one with her face, do you think that's had anything to do with the decision that Joe's made?
I'm not sure that she would have took into account the blow to the face. I mean, that's just one of the freak injuries that could have happened at any time. I think maybe just she's going to rotate more in the central positions and Nick will play more, even if she moves Nick into the holding role that she finished the game in today. I just think Nick's going to be on the park more than anybody, which is why she's probably been picked as a captain.
It's a good start so far, so long may it continue. We'll also just briefly touch on the documentary that Rangers released during the week about basically the history of women's football, which was quite nice considering the World Cup's on the now and it gets eyes on the game before up to this point. Car, did you manage to watch it?
Yeah, so I started watching it when it was first premiering on YouTube, which I didn't know was a thing. So that kind of took me by surprise that I clicked on it and it was halfway through already. So I had to go back and start watching it again. I've not watched all of it. I kind of skimmed through bits and then I watched kind of the end portion that was more about Rangers rather than just about Scotland. But I had a wee tear in my eye as I was watching the end of it because it's just incredible how far we have come, considering we just took over. I can't remember, was it Renfrew or was it Paisley? Ladies. Well, yeah,
Usually.
we just took them over because they were struggling financially, and then we then became where we are now to going pro in 2019 and everything we've done. But as Nick said at the end of it, we've got a long way to go yet, but we're making good strides. And it was really well put together. I think the club have done a good job on that.
Absolutely. Did you manage to watch it, Alan? I know you've been to the museum and you'd have seen the kind of 6-minute video probably that's in the museum. So did you manage to watch the full documentary?
Yeah, I managed to watch a full documentary. I think it was maybe a night it came out or it was last night. But very well put together, as Carl said. They've done a great job on that. And it was obviously only just finished last week because it contained some of the goals for Spartans last weekend, I noticed. But it's great just to see how far everything's came. I've obviously been a wee bit late to the party, joining in on the women's side of it. But it's great to see sort of where everybody's came from and sort of where we're still headed. But as you point out, Car, Nick said there's still a long way to go. They're talking about what they hear on internationals, and what other people are doing. So there's obviously a lot of development they still want to see.
Absolutely. I think it's good as well that they've kind of put it out now because they are getting so many people kind of eyes on the game now as well, Car. So it's good that it's kind of caught people up to this point, and obviously we were in at the end, briefly if you can see us. But it's good to kind of catch people up, get them interested, get them to know where the history of the game is, and up to this point, and then they can hopefully be adding on to that year after year with the success that we're hopefully setting the path for.
Yeah, I think that was kind of the point. I think they did it for the museum and then they've made the full thing. I don't know, was it this year? Was it last year? Was like the 50th anniversary of like women being allowed to play football kind of thing. So I don't know if
That
it's
last
any
year.
that yeah, it's kind of intertwined with that, but it's just really well made, and it's nice that the club are, making a bigger deal about the women's team now and kind of putting it out there more, because it kind of seemed like an afterthought a lot of the time before. And the crowd today was healthy. Like last week at Spartans, there was a lot of people there, and I think more people are tuning into the women's team now that it's more accessible and people are going along, which is nice to see. And hopefully that will just keep growing, and eventually we'll end up with our own, not stadium, but our own home, so to speak, rather than renting out another stadium, and we can have our own, piece of history we can build on there rather than just end up in random places.
Definitely. So we shall go to today's game then. Brings us nicely to that. I played Aberdeen today, 4:10 kickoff. Alan, what did you make of the game overall?
I thought it was a wee bit of a scrappy game. I think we let Aberdeen into it a wee bit too much, but we did speak about Aberdeen posing more a threat this season when we were previewing the game last week. And in fairness, it would have been a much more comfortable scoreline if it wasn't for an excellent performance for their goalkeeper. Who I think we spoke at the game. I think she's maybe on loan from Liverpool. So she had some excellent saves that could have seen us put the game maybe out of sight in the first half, but we gave them one chance with Kelly's defending and they took it, which made it a wee bit nervy at times, but we went ahead again with a really good goal, which I'm sure we're going to discuss, and then just overpowered them as the game went on. But it's exactly what we should be doing with teams that are not full time in the league.
It took a absolute screamer of a goal because the goalkeeper was doing so well. Carmen were peppering that goal with chances, so it took an absolute banger of a goal for Chelsea Cornet, who only seems to score these kind of goals, doesn't she?
She certainly does these days. It was a kind of scrappy game, as Alan says, but I think we're figuring it out. Like we're still trying to work out what Joe's asking the players to do, and they're still figuring out each other with a lot of kind of key players out at the moment. Hopefully back for Wednesday or Sunday. It's still kind of piecing it together, but we still managed to come away with some absolutely season-winning goals. Do you know what I mean? Like some of those goals could be like goal of the season already, and it's only the second game in. So I think it was fantastic to see that we managed to grind it out. Joe didn't look overly impressed at times with just certain bits of play that the team wasn't doing what she asked, or just like not finding the right pockets that we needed to be in. But overall, we come away with a healthy victory, not as healthy as I would have liked, but a healthy victory that just steers us on to Wednesday.
Yep. So I should have actually said that we only had was it the one change, Alan? With
One change,
kind of played it in behind Laura Berry and Kirsty Howitt, and then the rest of the team was as it was for the week before. Were you surprised at just the one change, Alan?
No, to be fair, I actually thought we'd maybe went with the same 11. I didn't see the manager's pre-match press conference, so I'm not sure why Rachel Rowe was swapped out for Laura Berry. But the team just carried on mostly from where we were last week, and some things were working, sometimes it was just breaking down. To be honest, we probably played better than we were looking back and thinking. It was just one of the games. It was frustrating, and we weren't quite capitalising on the possession and the chances that we had.
I think personally it was like a game of two halves, really, as it seems to be. Kind of had quite a few chances. We're kind of lucky not to be in the lead kind of going into half time. They obviously we scored that amazing goal with Chelsea, and then they got a scrappy goal back, but it just seemed like nobody was taking responsibility in the defence for the. They were, I think Chelsea was kind of scared she was going to pull the lasses in and give away a penalty, but nobody else was taking the responsibility, which then meant they went in 1-1, and I think that just kind of decided Joe's mood for the half time, and I don't think she was too happy with them, so I think that's why they came out and it was a totally different second half.
Yeah, I think they're still kind of finding their feet, and we were peppering her with the goalie with shots. There was a few that I was surprised really didn't go in because they were just fantastic, would have been fantastic goals, and she just managed to get to them. But it shows that Aberdeen have improved, and they've managed to get a goalkeeper on loan from Liverpool, which is incredible when you think of Aberdeen were at the bottom of the table last season. To be pulling in that kind of personnel is really good for the league. But our goal was fantastic. Chelsea is just an absolute baller, but their goal, it's just kind of disappointing. I think everybody just thought somebody else will deal with it, and I think a few people had their hands up as if she was offside, and she wasn't offside, and I think everybody just kind of thought, oh, someone else will deal with it, it's fine, they'll get it, Jenna will do it, or whatever, and then it just never happened, and they got the goal, which is disappointing. It's happened 2 weeks in a row, but they are still finding their feet in the new system, so I'm giving them a bit of leeway there. But if this continues every week or every game, the rest of the season, I won't be very happy.
I think they were kind of claiming that it was offside their goal, Alan, but the ball actually came back off of one of your players. So with the Scottish refs, you can't really trust them. So you really need to just be clearing that ball and getting it out of there.
I think it's kind of instinctive in the opposition strikers, 5-10 yards behind your defence. You just assume it's offside, but it's just maybe a wee bit loss in concentration that we've not realised that's actually one of our players that's played that back. And listen, fair enough, Aberdeen are going to go through and they're not going to turn that chance down. But Chelsea was the one chasing back and she just couldn't get in front of the attacker, and any challenge she makes, she's probably going to end up conceding a penalty and end up off the park and missing the next couple of games. So, there wasn't really a great deal more Chelsea could do chasing back. But as Carl says, we're still figuring some things out. We do need to tighten up on that because we can't be getting chances like that away all season.
And I think we should say, hopefully, the player that got injured, I think it was that just before half time. Am I right? It seems like a kind of nasty injury to her leg, so hopefully, not sure which player it was, but hopefully she's okay because that kind of added a few minutes on at the end of the half, so hopefully she's fine. So then we had a goal, we went and take the lead in the 63rd minute with a goal from Mia McCauley. I think that's our first goal for us.
For senior goal, yeah.
First senior goal for us. You want to talk us through that one, Alan?
The ball came to Mia in the corner of the box, and we put a bit of pressure on Aberdeen at this point, and everything kept getting sort of cleared. And Mia's sort of took one touch, set it up, and I think it was just a half volley right into the top corner, right across the keeper. Keeper's got no chance, even as well as she was playing. It was just struck so sweetly, and Mia's just took responsibility and says, you know what, I'll take a shot on. And we're all screaming for players to shoot more often, and she's done exactly that. One touch, set it up, and as I say, it was an outstanding goal. I'll be in some goalie of the month compilations, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Like curled and it dipped and eventually went in, Cash. Beautiful.
I'm still not over that, to be honest. If Messi scored that, it'd be on every highlight reel going for the next year. But because a 17-year-old lassie scores it, people don't seem that bothered. It's just incredible. It kept bouncing around, and Kirsty headed it back out, and everyone just didn't know what to do. And she just takes it, and it's almost like the outside of her foot, and she just hits it, and it curls and dips in, and it's just an absolute screamer. For your first goal, you couldn't hit it much better than that. Just incredible. For 17 years old, she's got a hell of a future in front of her, and we'll be lucky to keep her, I think, because she's going to be one that clubs down south and maybe abroad will be looking at, because she's just fantastic in all aspects of the game. She's, great out wide. She's very technically gifted with her feet, but she can score goals, as we know from today. So it's just incredible.
And with Brogan out injured for a few weeks, Alan, I think she's going to be kind of looking over her shoulder with young Mia coming up the back at her heels, scoring goals like that.
Well, she will, but I'll also encourage Brogan to make sure that she's fully fit by the time she comes back, because she'll not be under the same pressure to rush back into the team because we've got somebody in her position struggling. So it will do Brogan a world of good having the competition, but it's a chance that Mia's got now. She can really get a run of games, especially if she plays well in the next 2 games, which we'll go on to talking about. Massive games. If Mia can perform in their games and go on a run of form, then it can only be good for the team.
So after waiting all that time for goals, we'll have to wait another 5 minutes for the third goal that we scored from Rio Hardy. She's on the score sheet again, Cash. She's looking good so far.
It was a kind of strange goal. It just kind of bounced around and everybody was kind of swathing at it, and she just kind of got the final touch on it. But she's an incredible player. I think we're incredibly lucky to have her. She's, trying to get into those areas. I think there was a few moments in the game where she just looked almost frustrated that it just wasn't, paying off. She wasn't getting the ball at her feet where she needed it to, and she just kind of went, "Oh, I'll do it. It's fine." But she's incredible, and I think, I said Kirsty Hout's probably going to be the top goal scorer this season, and I'm starting to rue the fact that I said that, because I'm starting to think it's either going to be her or Rachel Rowe at this point. So I might be wrong when I said that, but she's another fantastic talent. And, we've got the young players in just now because we've got so many out injured, but they're all really stepped up to the plate, and you wouldn't really notice much of a difference. I guess we'll find out on Wednesday and Sunday how well that holds together against kind of the better teams in the league. But it's a very interesting time.
It's also promising, Alan, the way she's kind of linking up with Kirsty and also Laura Berry as well, that if they're no scoring, they're kind of assisting each other or getting that kind of second assist where they're making the chances for each other, which is really good to see considering how little they've kind of played together already.
Definitely, it was something we spoke about at the game. Our forward players are much closer together this year. We spoke so many times at games last year about whoever was playing up front was isolated. There's no support around them. If he won the ball, there was nobody to play off them. So we've got 3 players who the 3 are, who are all quite close together, so they can have a wee bit more link-up play. They can do a wee bit of swapping about and one drop deep, one push on. I don't necessarily think it was Rio's best game playing in the 10. I think she'd be much happier playing one up as one in the 2, but she worked hard right through the game. She was always a well-known runner, and the composure she showed for that goal, that's just what you expect for a top striker.
The next goal was an absolute stramash. Was it Kathy scored? Was it an own goal? Was it Jodie? Who knows?
I mean,
I wanted to Kathy, so we'll give it to Kathy.
I'm giving it to Kathy anyway, because I'm fairly sure it came off her midriff area. It was a corner in, and it just kind of bounces off of her, and then the goalie, I don't know if it actually hits the goalie or the defender, and then is it Jodie or Kirsty or batting it to get it in, and the refs, I don't know if it's in or not. We're all screaming for it, and then eventually it's given. So it's a bit of a hectic one, but not bad for, Kathy's first goal of this season. So we'll take it. And, those are sometimes the goals that you're going to need to get. We had a few corners and they just weren't really, there wasn't much coming from them. So it's nice to finally get something from a set piece today. And I think it's Kathy's.
And we can chalk that up, Alan, as one of the goals that we just have to get over the line. We said we need to score different kind of goals, and that's definitely a different goal scored.
Yeah, listen, they all count the same. Where it's a winder strike for Mia McCauley or a real scrappy goal forced over a line just by Kathy, and they all count the same. They'll all add up come the end of the season, and hopefully put us in a much better place than we were last year.
Absolutely. And then young Mia, full of confidence, was trying to get another goal, and eventually she did. She kind of left it a bit later, 89th minute for this one, which was the last goal of the game. It won 5-1, Car, but what an absolute fantastic game she had. I think she got player of the match with BBC Alpha, and don't think anybody can argue with that, really.
No, she had a fantastic game, and I think that goal gave her confidence because there was a couple more after the first goal that just went a bit high and a bit wide, and she was just kind of cutting inside and just took it really well. But she's just fantastic at those kind of almost Brogan-esque. I don't like to compare players with each other, but she really has kind of watched how Brogan plays and been kind of given that role, just cut inside and take it on, because I think Rachel had a shot before that. There was a few shots that it wasn't coming off, and I think she just kind of thought, oh, it's fine, I'll sort it. And she just cut in and did it. And I thought that was going to end a tighter game than it ended up being, because we did leave it so late with a few of the goals. But I'm happy that we eventually got there, which last season we probably would have just ended 1-1 or maybe a 2-1.
Yeah, so fair few goals. So BBC Alpha said Mia Macaulay player of the match. Would we disagree with that, Alan, or was she your player of the match as well?
It's probably hard to disagree. Probably the game I was thinking best player on the park was Chelsea. I think Chelsea started the season on fire. It's not just the goal scoring, but she's so confident on the ball. She's always showing she's putting the work in defensively. She's breaking forward, and again today it was more in the same. On a personal level, I thought Chelsea was the best player on the park, but again, it'd be hard to argue with anybody that wanted to pick Mia.
What about you, Cara? Was she your player of the match, or did you have somebody else in mind?
No, I think just because it was her first couple of goals for the club, and what a beautiful strike the first one was, I think it had to be her. I think you could make a case for probably most of the players on the pitch today, that maybe not the back line so much, but even then, Nick and Rachel had, really good games defensively. At times they were getting kind of pushed and shoved all over the place, and they just kind of took it on the chin. But I'd say Kirsty Howard, she didn't score, but I think she had a really good game in terms of the link up and assisting that she did today. So I think maybe having somebody beside her will be beneficial for her, because she is a confidence player. She, feeds off that, and if she's not able to score herself, at least she's got the opportunity to then lay off to somebody else to do it, which will help her, I think. So I think it's Mia, but you could probably make an argument for anybody if you wanted to.
What about you,
Yeah,
Laura?
I think I would throw Kirsty McLean into the hat as well. She's just something else. Like, there's maybe the odd too many step overs when she doesn't need to do it, and the odd around the world turning spinny things, whatever. But why no? If you can do it, just throw them in there. But she's just unbelievable in the middle of the park. So I would say the three we've said, her, Chelsea, and Mia, were just absolutely fantastic. For the substitutes, Alan, we had Rachel Rowe when we were kind of struggling. She started to warm up, but then once the goals started coming in, she was nowhere to be seen. She kind of went back on the bench, and we changed the subs to Kayla and I forgot who else came on.
Michelle Coulson came on.
Michelle Coulson, that's right. Which I think was quite good that Rachel Rowe has actually been rested, because we're going to have a tough couple of games coming up. Easy for me to say. So, were you happy with the substitutes that were made?
I would probably have liked to see more subs used, given the two games we've got coming up the next week. Just freshen up the team a wee bit, or just give some players a wee bit less minutes on the park. I think we can see the bench is very, very useful. Rachel Rowe is the only experienced player on that bench today. We're obviously got quite a long list of players still out, but it showed the versatility within the team, because they two subs came on, which involved two of the players already on the park moving to new positions. We obviously saw Mia play through the middle as a striker. After the subs, Kayla came on, played wide right. Then Michelle coming on at the back, Kathy moved across one, and Nick moved into midfield. So it shows even though the squad's really light, we've got options to move people about, and they played really well when they moved.
It's good for players to be able to kind of fill in different positions, because as we say, we've got quite a few injuries out. Megan's got a knock, Tessa's got a knock, Brogan's injured. So it's good that players can move about. And that, for me, I think Nick was really good, actually quite good in that sixth position, which didn't expect to see her in there, but she's done a job in there.
I know it took me a wee minute to figure out what's going on, because I think I don't know if I said to you, like, why's Nick up there? Like, what's happening here? But do you know, I've never been so happy to see a manager or a coach make changes and it not be like for like. I think I've got trauma from last season and the season before. It was just constant like for like changes. So to see, you know, I maybe would have liked it a little bit earlier, and I think she did plan on making that changes, and then we started scoring, and then obviously she changed her plan, which is quite nice that we've got that ability to do that. But you know, I think Kayla Jordan, who may be our player, maybe a Motherwell player, we don't really know what's going on at the moment with her, but when she came on, I think she did really well, and everybody kind of moved around to where they needed to be. But I think they did that a lot during the game anyway. There was a lot of kind of switching and, you know, moving around to where players needed to be to fill in gaps and whatnot. So it's really nice to see that that's working and that they're working on that in training, and you can see it kind of paying off.
Yeah, and on Kayla Allen, considering she's meant to be on loan, just kind of seems to have been kept back now by Joe and Jay back because of the kind of injuries to like Brogan, Lizzie, etc. But she's coming on and actually doing quite well when she comes on. So should we just keep her, or do you think once they're back, she's going to kind of drop back down the line that she could maybe go to Motherwell the second half of the season?
I think we're obviously making the assumption that she's been sort of the loan, if it's not been cancelled, it's at least been pushed back and postponed. We look at the bench, there is no other options really, unless we put more 15, 16-year-olds on the bench. But she's got a chance she maybe didn't expect in the summer, and she's not had a lot of time on the park, but that time she's had on the park, she's grabbing that chance and trying to make a stake for the claim.
Yep. So on the loans, we'll move seamlessly into this. We had Jenna Ferguson started again for Partick, and unfortunately they lost 3-0 to Glasgow City. Becca Taylor came off the bench for Hamilton in a 7-1 defeat. Good to see them getting minutes. Did you see any of the kind of Glasgow City game? Did you see how Jenna played at all?
No, so I was at work, and then I watched part of the World Cup final, so I didn't actually see how she got on, to be fair. So, I mean, it's nice that they're getting a chance. I maybe would have liked to see Becca get more of a game time, just because it's Hamilton versus, you know, Celtic. So realistically, how much of a chance have you got? So you may as well just like give her as much time as possible to kind of get her up to speed. But it's nice that she got some minutes. Obviously, it's not nice when it's a defeat, but it's good that they're getting that opportunity.
Well, that's been 2 full games, pretty much, I think, for Jenna Ferguson, and like half an hour, the 2 games for Becca Taylor Allen. So, did you see any of the game for the Glasgow City game? See how she done, or?
No, I never had the chance to see any of that game, or I'll try and catch the highlights tonight or tomorrow night. But it's certainly a tough test for Jenna if she's played the full game up against Glasgow City. That'll stand her in great stead. A different challenge from when they played Dundee United they beat last week, I think. So, not sure who they're playing midweek, but a run of games in the team with a pretty decent team at Partick. I think Jenna will do really well and will massively benefit our chances of coming back and making an impact at Rangers.
Absolutely, it could only be a good thing them getting these minutes against the top 3 teams, top two other teams, because they'll not be able to play against us, thankfully. So moving on, we're going to be playing Hearts midweek, and then we'll have Glasgow City next weekend. So tough couple of fixtures, Car.
Certainly, I think this will be the baptism of fire for Joe and Jay to welcome to Scottish football. Here's a real test for you rather than two of the kind of lower end of the table teams. But I think we've shown enough that we've adapted and we've changed enough that I think it shouldn't, Hearts certainly shouldn't be as much of a problem as we seemed to make it last season, that we seem to get in our heads, bar the last game of the season when we hammered them 6-0. I mean, needed that. We just got in our heads about trying too hard and we just couldn't find the back of the net. And I don't think that'll be a problem this time. It's certainly going to be difficult. They've recruited really well with a couple of our ex-players playing for them now and a couple of English players joined them. So it's certainly going to be difficult, but I think we'll be okay. The Glasgow City game, I genuinely couldn't tell you right now how that's going to play out. It could be a very tight, 2-1 affair, but it could also be something that we just steamroll because we're full of confidence at the moment. But I'm not feeling that nervous, surprisingly. I thought this week could be horrible. I thought it was going to be awful. We've got these two big games and what if we don't, play that well? But I think I've seen enough that's convinced me that we'll be all right.
Hopefully. But Alan, do you think it's the scars of last season that are making the Hearts game seem a bit more daunting? Do you think the players will kind of be in their heads for that one? Or do you think because it's a new management team, kind of new setup, new players in, do you think we'll be all right? Or do you think some of the players for last season will maybe be a bit concerned about them? Because Hearts have improved as well, I think.
Yeah, Hearts have obviously made strides. So they made it clear they hadn't scored enough goals last season. They've brought in a few strikers in the summer, so they're going to be a dangerous team to play, and we can't afford to give them chances and be careless at the back. In terms of scars for last season, I'm hoping with a change of system, a change of management, these scars have healed quite a bit. If it was just more in the same for last season, then I would be more worried about the scars for last season. But just having that more support around whoever's playing up front and no asking them to do it on their own, then I think we'll make chances and I think we'll take chances. I don't think there'll be a lot of goals in the game. I think it'll be very tight, but I'm not caring where it's a tight game or a comfortable win for us, as long as it's 3 points when we come back down and get ready for Glasgow City and then do the same on Sunday.
Definitely. So, Kat, would you make any changes to the team today? Would you bring maybe Rachel Rowe back in to kind of get a grip of the game early doors?
I think if Megan and Tess are back fit, I'd potentially bring them back in, but it depends. Obviously, we don't know what they were out with and how serious it was. If it was just a wee knock and she just wasn't risking them because she thought, well, we don't really need them, we'll be fine with the youth. I'd like to bring Megan back in just because I think she does really well in that role. I think Rachel Rowe does incredibly well whether she comes off the bench or whether she starts. So I think maybe Joe will play it by ear and kind of see how we get on with Tess back in the midfield and Megan in behind the front two, see how we get on with that. And then if it's a game that's crying out for it, she can bring her on and she can come on and grab it by the scruff of the neck if needs must. But I think it's good that we've got that versatility, but that's banking on the fact that they're back fit. If they're not, we don't really have much of a choice and she's going to need to start because we can't be running players into the ground this early in the season, especially young players that are just kind of setting foot into the senior squad. So it's potentially, we will need to bring her back. Hopefully it was nothing and she was just wrapping her cotton wool for these coming games to just give her a bit of a rest.
What about you, Alan? Would you make changes to the starting 11 for today?
Possibly, I'd look at bringing Megan or Rachel Rowan to the front three, but I don't see any changes being made sort of middle to back in the team. We spoke about who our best players were for the game today, and we spoke about how well Chelsea and Kirsty played in the midfield. I can't see them dropping out, even to bring Tess back, and that's no underestimating how important Tess has been, but the way Kirsty and Chelsea are playing, I think if Tess is back, Tess will be on the bench in there to bring on if we need extra support and solid it up in the middle. I think maybe it might be harsh, but it might be Laura that misses out if she brings in either Megan or Rachel Rowe. And Rio will push up one with Kirsty.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think either Megan or Rachel's going to come in that kind of number 10 position with Rio and Kirsty leading the line. What about the goalie? Does Vic come back in at all, Cash?
I don't know, because I don't know how much Joe's going to want to rotate the goalies, or if it's a case of, Jenna's not really done that much wrong, but she's not really had much to do. So it might be kind of harsh to drop her now that we're at the kind of more important games, and that kind of paints a picture of, well, you're fine for the other games, but Vic's the number one that's there for the big games kind of thing. So I don't know if that's harsh, but personally, I think I would. I think I would bring Vic back in, just because I know what she can offer us. When there's more shots being peppered at us, she's, as much as she was played last season, got more of a track record of making kind of good saves. Not that Jenna's a bad goalkeeper, but she's got mistakes in her, which gives me a little bit of fear, but seems to be handling it a bit better this season. So I think I would personally, but I don't think Joe will.
I think just why it was in my mind was because today when Aberdeen kind of were pressing us a bit, she had a few moments I was kind of like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
Cars with Jenna through seasons past. But Alan, would you change the goalkeeper, or do you think it'll just be, as you say, the same kind of defence, goalkeeper, midfield, and it'll just be maybe that number 10 position that'll get switched up?
I don't expect the keeper to change. I think Jenna's got the gloves until she really deserves to be left out. I think Vicky will probably have to be patient, but once she gets a chance in the team, then she'll grab it and she'll get a proper run. We've already spoke about it in the last couple of weeks. I don't think we're going to see the sort of potluck of what goalkeeper's going to play every week. I think both the girls are going to get a run in the team, and it's Jenna's place to lose right now. If you bring Vic back in for these two big games, that's adding a lot of pressure on that argue maybe we don't need to put on the team.
Very interesting. So we'll go for score predictions for Hearts, then we'll have a wee discussion of Glasgow City. Cash, what's your score prediction for Hearts next week? And it's also at 6:30 kickoff, everybody, so be there at half 6 for half 6.
They changed the time on everybody, and thankfully most of us seem to have noticed, but there was lots of unhappy people saying, I don't know how I'm going to get from work, it's not enough time. Just because it seems to be a theme from the last couple of games, I'm going to go 4-1 to us. I think we'll be all right, but I think Hearts do have goals in them, and I think we'll maybe make a mistake, so I'll say 4-1.
Alan, score prediction?
I think it'll be very, very tight. We'll probably have to go late into the game before we secure it, but I'll be optimistic and say 3-1. Again, I'm not convinced that we'll keep a clean sheet based on the last couple of games, and based on Hearts will be by far the most dangerous team we've played so far this season, but I think we'll have enough to get the 3 points and start healing the scars of last season.
Well, I'm going to go a nervy 2-1 win. I think we're definitely going to concede because it used to be a trend. I think we'll get a couple of goals and get it over the line, but it'll be nervous. We'll be nervous. Car's going to be freaking it. So I think for the Glasgow City game, I think a lot of the kind of team selection is going to depend on the midweek game. Car, because I don't know who she's going to pick, if she's going to kind of maybe rest players for that, since Glasgow City technically should be the bigger game and Hearts should be a bit easier, but might not play it that way. So what do you think for the team for Glasgow City?
I think it depends on who's, fully fit and who's, doing all right after the midweek game, because it is a lot of games, in close succession, is that the word? To each other. So I don't know. I think personally, I'd go strongest. You put your strongest 11 out there to begin with, and then see how we get on. Which means that it's probably Rachel Rowe in that number 10 position with Kirsty and Rio up there. I'd potentially take Jodie out and put Tess in, just because she offers that bit more experience and a bit more kind of, I don't want to say level-headedness, because it's not as if Jodie's erratic, but that just kind of bit more calmness in the midfield beside Kirsty and Chelsea. Probably the back line would probably stay the same, and I think I'd probably go Vic, to be honest, in goal, just because she's just played at a World Cup. If you can't handle the pressure of Glasgow City when you've just played at a World Cup, she's an international for New Zealand, played at a World Cup, and she just signed an extension with us. She's not going to sit on the bench and play the cup games. Do you know what I mean? She's going to get some of the bigger ties. I think that's why she's been brought back in after being with us last season. So I think she'll go fairly strong, and I think we'll be alright.
There's also the option as well, if you're taking Jodie, putting Megan in on the wing as well. So there's options there. It depends if she's back. You could switch it up. Alan, what would you do? Would you switch it up or keep it the same?
I think there'll not be too many changes. I think shape will be important. There'll need to be players picked who will fit into the shape. I think if you're looking at taking Jodie out, I'm not really sure that would be entirely fair on Jodie, who's done really well. But I think the most likely replacement for Jodie on that side would be Rachel Rowe playing out there. And then possibly have that energy out there, that experience on that side. And you probably see Megan in the 10 rolling behind Rio and Kirsty.
Certainly going to be an interesting week. So it's 6:30 Wednesday. I think tickets are still available. And then Sunday is 4:10 at Broadwood. Tickets are definitely still available for that, but it'll probably be a big crowd expected with a green tickets in that way, so definitely get your tickets for that. So I had the World Cup sweepstake winner today. Louise won that because Spain beat England. If you didn't already know. Sorry if I just spoiled that for you, but she's won that. She's already contacted myself, and her kind of flag is in the pipeline, so that'll be up at Broadwood soon. Well done to Louise. Unlucky to Charlene, who had England, and obviously unlucky to England as well. We're so upset things. Also, we had the FPL week one. Well, joint winners was myself and Graham. Wasn't a fix as much as Alan thinks it was, so just good football knowledge. That's why we're here. But it's no looking as great this week, so we'll roughly go over that and pass it to Alan for the score predictor.
Well, score predictor, I've posted on the Facebook page. Gordon's still leading. He's started very strong in the first two rounds, so he's still a man to catch. It was a good take up. 12 out of 14 who entered in the first week entered last week. So just encourage anybody else who's sort of watching, had a wee look at it, join in. It's just a wee bit of fun. We tiny bit of fun's into the group, and you can always have a wee bit of a laugh if somebody gets a really bad score, or be amazed at somebody that gets a really good score. And more importantly, just have a wee bit of fun with your friends in the group and make sure you get a better score than they do.
It's been interesting so far, Car. We were actually watching all the other scores in the games today, which we've kind of kept an eye on the past couple of seasons, but it's kept us looking at the scores elsewhere today. So
Yeah, I've definitely not been. Obviously, like you look at the table and you see who's where and like what's going on, and but I've never been so invested in how Hamilton are doing and how Motherwell are doing like before because I hate being wrong. I hate losing things like competitions, anything. I hate it. That's why like I won't mention the FPL because I've done awful at that because I didn't actually know what I was doing last week and I came dead last at one point. I've done a bit better this week, I think, but I haven't actually checked to be fair. But it's interesting. It's just a way to keep an eye on the league and like see, who's brought in who's scoring where, what's going on. And so it's made it a bit more exciting and kind of got me looking at, the rest of the teams in the league.
Definitely. But definitely a good idea. It's got everybody talking and joining in. So well done to Gordon again. I think we need to get some tips off him. I think I might need to look at his scores before I make my prediction next week. He seems to know what he's talking about. Maybe we need to get Gordon on. But thanks very much, Darlene, again, and Cash. And
Thank
we'll
you.
be back next week talking about the games, hopefully with 6 points on the board.
Who's hoping?
Hopefully. A quick mention, we should say it was really good to see how many of the scarves were on display at the game today. I think it was nice for always to see, but especially Cara has done all the work on that. So
Definitely.
Yeah, it really took me by surprise. Like I knew, like I've known how many people bought them, but it kind of just like I was walking down to give some to Martin and his mum, and just seeing like little girls with their scarves and they're all just like playing with them, and they had them laying on the wall, and like people I've never spoken to at the games before, I've never interacted with, but their Waynes are running about with scarves, and like a couple of people came over and bought them from me because they saw us like offering them out and put on the group and that. So it's been very nice that all like the hard work and stress that goes into getting those organised and made is actually kind of paid off. And they're actually almost sold out, so I don't know whether I'm going to have to do a second batch and go through that again just because people seem to be really liking them.
Absolutely. So if you want them, contact Car or contact myself at the RFC WSG. They are obviously limited, but if you're interested, we will obviously get Car back in our wee shop making our scarves.
It's
So
live.
let us know if you're in. We're working hard, honestly. So if you're interested, let us know. Otherwise, we'll see you next week.